This video is brought to you by Vessi. Let me go ahead and rip this Band-Aid off right now. There is no way for me to retain my dignity and complain about My Little Pony. Just right out the gate, all right? Also, I hate this baby dragon. I cannot stand it. I miss Spike from G4, where he could actually talk. And yeah, he was a baby dragon, but he was kind of sassy. This new dragon, though, it's a baby. It's like a cocoa melon dragon, and I hate it. Because this grown man who's reviewing My Little Pony G5 is not pleased. So Hasbro, I hope you're paying attention because you got a long road to recovery for this guy. And that's my life. For those who don't know, I've been a viewer of My Little Pony for over a decade. As a matter of fact, that's how my YouTube channel even launched in an official capacity back in 2011. Was because of the pony stuff. I kind of teetered off in the mid-2010s, and this channel, as you see it now, kind of emerged. And there's been no going back since then. It's like one Lovecraftian nightmare right into another. But will give credit where credit is due. G4 My Little Pony is very good. And the fact that it even exists is a miracle. It's like lightning in a bottle. Let me just paint a picture, okay? My Little Pony is a franchise for the longest time. Basically, its entire run has been controlled by Hasbro, and they're like, it's just ponies for little girls, who cares? From the merch to the shows themselves, which were just glorified commercials, it's just like tea parties, and G1 had some kind of cool moments, but for the majority of the generational run of My Little Pony, from the toys to the shows, Hasbro knows their demographic, and they're very good at selling them what they want. I have to remind myself, kids, mostly little girls, are the ones buying the products, the merchandise, the reason why My Little Pony even exists. So I have to, again, keep myself grounded in my criticism, knowing that this is more of a business than it is art. I think that's where I'm at odds with myself. So for G4, when that generation of My Little Pony was launched in 2010, Hasbro, the folks who own My Little Pony, basically said, hey, Lauren Faust, the person who worked on Powerpuff Girls, and she would go on to work on other projects, and she also was involved in Foster's, just have ponies, whatever. This generation's yours. We don't care. Just make something. Lauren, though, has actual conviction, and she's a very sincere artist, and she made a great version of the pony generation with new characters, even reinventing old ones, very stylized, very inspired, wonderful art, wonderful chemistry. It was refreshing, and actual dialogue that's like, this doesn't feel like it's skewed like towards little girls to an insulting degree. It's actually just fun to watch across the board. And that brought in a lot of folks who are like, yeah, My Little Pony's fun. Folks are like, when's he gonna say the B word? When is he gonna say bronies? I just did. But the brony fandom came from that. And I'm trying not to get stuck on that, because I see that more as like a niche demographic where folks are like, bronies are the ones who really push My Little Pony. No, they're not. Bronies are an exceptional group of fans with their creativity and what they've done. And of course, there's, like any fandom, you're unsavory types, but the majority of the demographic that makes My Little Pony move are kids, duh. Again, I should not be surprised that Hasbro, after feeling the ignition of G4, they were like, oh shit, we're onto something here. We're really pushing merchandise, because to Lauren's credit, she made a good show, and she made great character designs that lended themselves perfectly over to toys. So Hasbro, I think, took notice of the success of G4 and said, okay, cool. We're really gonna run with this momentum into G5. About a year ago, there was a G5, by the way, G stands for generation, a G5 movie for My Little Pony called My Little Pony: The Next Generation. And it was on Netflix, and it was very well done. The characters are fun. A lot of folks going into this generation were like kind of holding their breath, being like, oh, please be good. Please be just as good as G4. Don't take a step back into G3. Just hold that quality. Be appealing. You don't have to pander to kids or anything. You can make this still good like G4. And it's like, okay, the movie achieved that to a degree. But then my concerns became this. Oh, shoot. They started with a really good movie with a big budget, or at least a larger budget. It looks phenomenal. is this going to be a 3D animated show when the actual series arrives? Because if so, that's going to be a noticeable downgrade. Not saying it's worse, as in like, oh wow, this is poorly made, but obviously the budget won't be the same for the series, or at least if so, it's going to be spread out across multiple episodes. And lo and behold, it's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what happened. G5 is in 3D. Kind of, mostly. There's a little series called Tell Your Tale, which is like a mini series on YouTube where that's more like G4. It's 2D with puppets. And it's like, oh, I was kind of hoping for that, but even that's not perfect. But it's also, I think, much more preferred for me. But also for the 3D animated models here in the animated series for G5, I'm like, these look really good. These are very good. I like the designs. I think they're done by excellent character designers, and there are talented animators involved in G5. No doubt about it. Talented artists across the board. And I will always go up to bat for that, where there's effort and quality and actual artistic merit being used. But by God, I think they're being spread a bit too thin, because there's moments where I'm seeing animation errors on the series on Netflix here. And I'm even questioning how they're rolling it out, where I'm like, wait, it's a cinematic movie, kind of, a year ago. Then there's a one-part special, leads into an 8 episodes. That's the beginning of the first season, but there's this through line of some antagonist Alicorn Opaline who's trying to take the magic, and I guess Twilight Sparkle is still kind of around, like an Obi-Wan Kenobi who's like, Sonny, I'm with you, and we have to stop the magic from being used by another evil Alicorn OC. So G4 has a footstep in this universe, which of course was also the case in the film from a year ago. So it's like, okay, Hasbro's leaning into G4, but at the same time, I feel like, gosh, focus, Saber, come on. Okay, let's just make this clear. Visually, I think G5 is very good. It's not what I was hoping for. I was kind of hoping for 2D, but the 3D, it's fine. There's just moments where it seems to feel a bit empty. The movement's a bit wonky. Sometimes the physics of the hair don't really cooperate and move in I think, ways where they shouldn't. I've caught some animation errors, and I'm trying my best to make sure that different does not mean worse. I have to keep my bias and my sentimental memories of G4 in line, because like G4 was done in, I think it was Toon Boom, and it looks great. G4 was a very good looking show. It's very vibrant, fun character designs and movement. Very well made. I think G5 is even more like ambitious with what it's trying to do with its animation, but it's there's just moments where I'm like, it's easier to mask 2D for an animation series where you can't really see where they're cutting the budget, because you can just take, okay, a background, we need an audience, we need a crowd of background characters, so we'll just kind of populate the background with the same background pony model, plop, 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 plop. But for a 3D animated series like G5, it's like, well, that requires an individual animated rigged or a 3D rig in the background. So it's like a double-edged sword. There's advantages for 2D, advantages for 3D, disadvantages for each. Depends on how you wield the sword. So I'm just kind of wrapping my mind around it, because I'm like watching and I'm like, it's good, but it's not what I was hoping for, but it's also something where I'm going to give it time and see where it goes. We'll see. Where I take issue is more with the writing, that was my grand fear. I'm like, okay, visually, I can forgive G5 if it's a bit wonky or different. I can roll with the 3D models, but what about the writing? Because the writing for G4 is very good. I thought it had wonderful chemistry for the characters with Twilight and Applejack and Rainbow Dash. All these characters had good chemistry. The main 6 were very fun, defined, distinguished, excellent characters that I enjoyed, and millions of others. And for G5, I'm like, well, we have that same caliber of chemistry of characters. And the film, I felt like, okay, I think so. I like the main 5, as they're being called now. And then the series started. I'm like, oh, I can feel this noticeable downgrade where they feel dumber and the dialogue feels more awkward, and it lost something from going from the Netflix movie from 2021 to this series. It doesn't work as well. It feels more cumbersome with the writing and dialogue, where I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit awkward. Like, some of these characters are also surprisingly dumb. maybe not even surprisingly. I don't know them well enough yet. But there's an episode, spoilers, where Sunny, who's the main character, who's the main character, feels kind of like she's the background character out of the main cast. She's gotten the least amount of screen time from the feel of it. But she like, oh, I'm an alicorn. I'm an Earth pony who can go Super Saiyan alicorn. And then this villain alicorn, Opaline, who's trying to, I guess, get the magic as it goes, tropey trope. She's like, well, I'm gonna pretend to be Sunny in a reflection of this mirror device, and I'll tell Sunny, hey, I'm you, and I'm talking to you. And Sunny's like, okay, cool. Completely accepts it right out the gates. It's like, you have naive characters, but by God, that was dumb. All you had to do is just ask this character who's talking to you something only you would know. But again, I'm like, okay, keep your expectations in line. It's a kid's show, Saberspark, you dumb, embarrassing man-child. But then, like, the character literally, Sunny said something, that's my deepest dream. For the reflection character, the villain, to be like, that's your dream? It's like, well, yes, me, you should know that. You're me. So I can't deny that the writing just isn't doing it for me. And the stories lack magic, because there was a time skip from G5, because it realized on G4, like, oh, time passed and the main six are dead and magic went away and they reclaimed it in the film and the G5 movie. And now we got smartphones, yeah, floss and Instagram reels. And there's an episode about Pip character. She's afraid she got shadow banned. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing the smartphones as the plot. I just feel like adding smartphones from a marketing point of view, I get it. Hasbro's like, we can put it on YouTube. We can really kind of just roll with this smartphones and smart tablets and devices because it's hashtag relatable for the kids who are watching this stuff. Let's just do it. It just makes sense. And also we can sling merch that's sculpted around smartphones and phone cases or whatever. But like, as far as the world goes, there's a noticeable drop of excitement from the fantasy elements because of them going, let's go with smartphones. And it was okay in the movie, but as the series progresses, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Too much smartphones. It feels too modern for my liking. And I kind of miss G4 where it felt a bit more magical and even dangerous because it's like we're a bunch of ponies living in this ambiguous world where it's castles and little towns, but there's no smart devices. There's no phones, there's a train, there's hot air balloons, but that's about it. It doesn't feel as good in G5, in my opinion. So I guess all in all, to keep this vague review, trying to make it a bit more focused here, and without going too far off the beaten path with the story, but I suppose seeing what Make Your Mark has done so far isn't really doing it for me. And I see what they're doing with this Misty character who's like an assistant to the villain who's probably going to become a new main character with the main 5 to make it the main 6 with the 2 Pegasi, 2 Earth ponies, and the 2 unicorns. But overall, I'm just not as enthused as I was with the film. And the characters all feel like they've kind of dropped in their quality when it comes to who they are as characters and what they're about. Just doesn't have the same shine, doesn't have the same spark to it. And I'm hoping that enough of the story progressing will get to some open waters and it'll feel better. But for the time being, this constant Skeletor villain in the background, they're working up to something, which is different from G4 because G4 had like 2-parters and 3-parters, but for this to be the constant story, always, where the villain is always at the end of these episodes being like down to the corny laugh. It's like, oh, what is this? Some 1980s cartoon? Overall, I have a lot of mixed thoughts and feelings about G5 My Little Pony, but I can't help but laugh because I'm a sad man-child who is currently making a video complaining about G5 My Little Pony. So let's be real here. I should be blown up by the dragon fire and turned into mush, or I don't know what the baby dragon can do, but I don't like the baby dragon. Get rid of this thing. I hate it. Whenever it's on screen, it's like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh no, why is there a baby in a kid's show? My life is so sad. So yeah, those are my thoughts about Generation 5 My Little Pony. What do you all think? I'm curious to see what y'all think about the visuals, the characters, the chemistry, the animation, just everything. I'm curious. Let's get a conversation going. I'm teetering on the fence with this one, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Those are my thoughts. See you all next time. You know what these stupid little Earth ponies needed on their hooves? Vessi shoes. Yep, I gotcha. Got you again with the sponsor out of nowhere. Guys, I legit could not have received my new Vessi shoes at a better time.
I recently went on like this 2-week trip across the country that took me from the cornfields of Nebraska to the deserts of Arizona to the city streets of San Francisco, and my Vessis aced the entire journey. I ordered a new pair of the men's weekend Vessis in asphalt black that arrived the day before I had to leave for my trip. They were perfect at the TSA line at the airport, wearing them on my long flights across the country, walking around Omaha, Nebraska, climbing the steep streets of San Francisco, hiking the desert paths of Tucson, Arizona, which, by the way, I'm really glad I had them during that portion of my trip. You want to know why? Because there were scorpions literally everywhere during those hikes. I'm talking like 20 of them at a time. Thank you, Vessi, for protecting my precious feet during that leg of the race. Hell, it even rained both in Arizona and San Francisco the days of my trip. But Vessis are 100% waterproof, so I was able to walk through puddles just fine. Also, Vessis are made from Dymatex, which is a dual climate knit material that keeps you cool in the summer and warm in the colder weather. So for me, in the deserts of Arizona, my feet could breathe during the day when it was warm out, but they were nice and toasty during the cold evenings. They're comfortable, lightweight, and breathable, which was the perfect combo I needed for my trip. Also, they look stylish as hell and match well with my wardrobe. So I highly recommend Vessis. They are my go-to shoes by my door. Check them out in the link down below and use my code Saberspark for $25 off each pair of adult Vessi shoes. Go hit them up today.